It was very, very similar between our two situations is how long and how patient
Yes.
these perpetrators were in reaching them. So it's, if they had come to um, either one of our kids on the first day and said, "Hey, in our case, do you want to move to Kosovo?" or said, "Hey, do you want to move to India?" They both
Right.
would have said no. They overestimate their ability to manage it, and they really underestimate the risk. Says, well, all I got to do is just turn it off. I mean, they're
Yeah.
8,000 miles away. But they're so used to virtual relationships, and since they've been little bitty kids.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Destiny Dawn, and this is the Destiny Dawn Show. Today, I have a very special guest coming on my show. He is the one who co-authored the book Almost Gone with his daughter Mackenzie, when his daughter almost did the same thing that my daughter did. He also wrote the foreword for my book, From 8,000 Miles. So I'm very excited to have him today. So let's welcome John Baldwin on the show. Good morning, John. How are you?
Hey, Destiny, it's so good to see you again.
It's good to see you too. We last talked when you and your wife and me and my husband were able to get together with
Mhm.
Melanie, our editor. We both share an editor. And so I'll just talk a little bit about how I found you. Actually, I think you wrote your book, Almost Gone, with your daughter Mackenzie. Wasn't it in 2017 when it came
That's
out?
right. It was published in November of 17. Yeah.
Okay, so I didn't find your about you or your book until October 2018. It was almost a whole year after it had been out. And
Mhm.
so how I found John was we had literally just gotten off of the plane in October 1st of 2018. That very week, I remember I was in my bedroom. I was laying across my bed and I was thumbing through Facebook and I saw the YouTube video of you and your daughter on the Megyn Kelly show. I still have it saved in my watch list. And um and it was the very week that we had just gotten back from India to rescue our daughter from what we believe was an attempt at human trafficking.
Mhm.
And it was like you just kept saying over and over, we just don't know what would have happened if, if she had actually left, because your daughter was planning to leave, but she didn't actually leave. And you kept saying, well,
Mhm.
we just don't know what would have happened, if she had
Mhm.
left. And I'm over here like, I do.
I do.
I just got back. I just got back, and it was a tragedy. It was a tragedy, and we're still going through it. But because our daughter's not with us right now. And as you said that, I've been reading your book recently. I've read it twice and I've been making notes. I could almost like underline everything in the book because there's so much there that we don't even have time for today. But
Mhm.
things that were so similar. And I was just like, she it is just amazing, the similarities, even to the point of him, and we'll get into it in a minute, but even with him calling you dad and calling me mom,
Mhm.
that was like the cherry on top. It was like
Mhm.
everything was so similar. But I remember how your daughter was so outgoing. That was the big light bulb that came on my mind, and it really helped me because she had all these friends. She was outgoing. She was popular. She wasn't a quiet person. She was a very strong-willed, independent person, from what you say.
Mhm.
And that was so opposite my daughter. She also had a very good relationship with you, her father, a very close connection. I mean, y'all went on all the church, trips and doing the rock climbing and the camping and
Mhm.
things like that.
Yeah.
And said you spent a lot of time with her, spent a lot of time with her. And I can't say any of that for my daughter. I mean, she stayed isolated. She isolated herself from our family from a very, I mean, early for her whole life. And she just wasn't very close with our family, didn't like to play games with us, didn't like to watch movies with us. And she wasn't an outgoing person. She actually had social anxiety, and she didn't have any friends. So when I found out that this happened to your daughter, I just thought this can happen to anybody. I don't
Right.
have to feel guilty that my
Mhm.
daughter doesn't have all those things. I mean, here's a girl that, had all those things and it still happened to.
Mhm. Yeah, they they just prey on the vulnerable, on the vulnerable, and they use different ways to do it. But they connected to our daughters, perhaps in different ways, but
Yeah.
with the same purpose.
Yes. And so that's what I like to I just had my first speaking engagement, and I know that you and Mackenzie went around and talked at
Hmm.
churches to girls. And this is one thing that I have to bring up is your story. And why it's so important for me to bring that up is to talk about the difference. Because if I just talk about my daughter, then they're like, well, then we won't ever have that problem because my daughter's not like that, you know.
Hmm.
But your daughter was one of those who that they would just have to say, well, that could happen to anybody if it could happen to her. So I
Yeah.
always bring that up.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, they both have very similar stories. They both were approached by these guys online who they were into a romantic relationship with. And so
Hmm.
they lured them, as you said, that your daughter, it's not like they just grabbed her and took her. She wanted to go. And that's the problem
Hmm.
is it's here. So even
That's
if you
right.
try to stop them, when they want to go and they make them want to go and they lure them, it's very hard to rescue them from that.
Yeah. And the other thing, Destiny, that was very, very similar between our two situations is how long and how patient
Yes.
these perpetrators were in reaching them. So if they had come to um, either one of our kids on the first day and said, "Hey, in our case, do you want to move to Kosovo?" Or said, "Hey, do you want to move to India?" They both
Right.
would have said no. But
Right.
in our case, Mackenzie's relationship with Adam went on for 14 months. She kept it extremely quiet, and it was a real deep secret that she kept, that a few people knew around her, and it went on for a long time, going to great lengths to keep that quiet from us. And you guys had exactly the same thing that stretched 2 years.
Yes. Yes, he was talking to her for 2 years, and again, the relationship was a secret. We didn't even know that he existed. As a matter of fact, and
Hmm.
this is another good point, our daughter had a boyfriend the whole time, and he was a Christian with a golf scholarship, and I know that your daughter also had a boyfriend.
Yeah, a good guy too, liked him. It was like,
Yeah.
we thought everything was great. It's like, what are you
Yeah.
doing?
Yeah, and that's the other thing that I have to always bring up is that, because a lot of parents might think, well, my daughter, she has a boyfriend. I mean, she's not going to talk to some guy online.
Hmm.
Well, both of our daughters had boyfriends and they cut off that relationship in order to be with this person. That is astounding to me that it can be that strong of a pull, to be able to get them to cut off not just, a relationship with their boyfriend, but a relationship with their family, their job, quit their job and their whole life, leave their whole life for this person. That's a very strong pull.
Yeah.
So,
I've thought a lot about how that could happen. And I guess it doesn't happen just to girls. It
right,
happens to a lot of people, older women or widows, or, that these guys are always looking for ways to make entry into their lives.
yeah,
I think there's something exotic about talking to someone who's overseas,
yeah,
who's from a different culture, a different country, especially if they're not coming across as creepy or weird,
right,
or trying to change their values or their faith, like right out of the gate,
right,
and then slowly kind of build into it. I think there is some romanticism that comes with that, that I think that Mackenzie fell into, and it was just exotic and different. And I think that she probably liked talking about it, when she was with her friends at school, that, yeah, seeing a guy in Kosovo, and in her case. And I'm just speculating, but I think that for kids that are 17, 18 years old, um, maybe that's part of the allure up front. And I think there's safety in doing it online. That I think that, in Mackenzie's case, that they really feel like they overestimate their ability to manage it, and they really underestimate the risk.
Yeah.
And you know, when these online relationships begin, I think they have a lot of safety that says, well, all I got to do is just turn it off. I mean, they're
Yeah.
8,000 miles away. All I got to do is just flip it off. But
Right.
at some point, it goes to the point where they really have a relationship that maybe you and I have a really hard time relating to.
Mhm.
But they're so used to virtual relationships, and since they've been little bitty kids, um, kids can, I think they have an ability to build and maintain relationships among their social circles with social media that you and I didn't have. I certainly
Right.
didn't. And
Right.
but I think that they've kind of, it's more natural to them. And
Yeah.
so I think that they really feel like there's always safety in the fact that they're distant and they can turn off. It's just then, but when they get to the point where they don't want to, then that becomes then everything changes.
Yes, you're right. I mean, like you said, these guys, this is a business and they're very invested. I mean, this is a full-time job for them, like you said. I mean, they're I like the way you had said it in your interview with Melanie. You said that it's easy for the girls to mistake manipulation for a relationship because
Mhm.
these guys, this is their job and they're totally invested in it and they spend so much time on it. So it's a project, and so that's why I say education, not condemnation. These girls don't need to feel embarrassed about what they
Mhm.
did. I mean, this is something that is a business. They know what they're doing. There's a script. Mine and yours were so, I mean, unbelievably alike what the tactics and strategies. It
Oh,
was like, I cannot
identical.
believe this.
It was identical. It
Yes.
was it was crazy.
Yes.
What really surprised me, I don't know if you felt this way, but what really surprised me most was their ability to bring their families into it as well. And um and
Are you
um
talking about the perpetrator's family?
yes,
Yes.
they would bring in their to build credibility and
Yes.
safety, to say, well,
Yes.
here's my mom, here's my
Yes.
dad. They
Yes.
don't speak English, but they'll wave from from the
Yeah.
camera, or
Mhm.
hey, it's my brother's birthday, here's I would
Yeah.
never do that. I mean, if my, for someone that, my daughter was talking to overseas, but I
I
get the
know.
feeling, I guess I don't have any expert validation this is true, but I mean, but just in our case, with it being exactly the same, I feel like that I guess in some ways, a family business. I mean, whatever they're trying to do, be it
Exactly.
trafficking or citizenship scam, this is just, they don't view it that they have no problem with it. That
Exactly.
if they can get
Exactly.
money or
It
get them overseas, or or get themselves over there, it doesn't matter. I mean, this is just a means to an end,
right.
and they feel justified in doing it. And it doesn't matter who's hurt on this side of it.
Exactly. It's like it is their way of life. It's a survival. They have to survive. They are taught from a young age as children to pickpocket. And then when they're older, it's bigger things. And yeah, the family doesn't seem to have any remorse. It's like it's what they just know to do and that they have to do it. And we were even in the beginning, I wasn't even sure if that was really his family. I thought, well, maybe this is a mom and
Mhm.
dad posing, a sister posing as his sister. I wasn't sure if it was really his family. I do believe it is now, but in the beginning, his sister, my daughter said, well, his sister's an actress. And then we had gotten news that she wasn't really an actress. And then I was like, oh, so she is an actress. She's just a different kind of actress because a lot of times the girls will come with the guy to make the other girl that they're trying to lure to feel more comfortable going with them because,
Mhm.
oh, there's a girl there, involved. And so we weren't sure if maybe she was just being paid as to pretend to be his sister. Maybe she's even a cousin, but when we were in India, we never saw her the entire time we were there. So it was
Uh,
a little strange. So, but I do want to touch on a couple of things that you mentioned. First of all, is that I believe you're dead on whenever you say that the cultural differences is what really pulls them in. It is very intriguing. It is very exciting. I know for sure for my daughter that was part of it.
Uh-huh.
Even since a young age, I know since in my older son too, he's this way. They were very interested in other cultures, even from the time my daughter was like in 5th grade, very interested in the Asian culture. And I think it kind of goes back to, because we didn't have a lot of Asian people in our country at that time, but like we do now, but we did have a lot of the Asian cartoons and like the Yu-Gi-Oh cards and the Pokemon and all of
Yeah,
that. So
yeah,
I think that really
yeah.
made them feel very comfortable with it, and they really liked it.
Mhm.
And another reason why my daughter really liked being in a different culture, not only just because it was so different, but I don't think it's an understatement or an overstatement for me to say that she really didn't like women. She really felt she hated them. I think it's safe to say she hated women. I mean, she really disliked them because she felt like she was always in competition with them. So to be in a completely, or she felt women were in competition with each other all the time. So for her to go
Mhm.
completely to another country where nobody looked like her, I mean, they're all dark skin, dark hair, and she's blonde, with light colored eyes. I mean, she felt like there's no competition here. It's so different that she didn't feel like she had to, compete with it. So,
Mm.
so I think that it was very alluring. I think you're
So
dead
that's
on
some
whenever you
celebrity
say that.
status there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
In the differences in our story is that your daughter didn't actually leave and our daughter
yeah,
did, and you
yeah.
found out.
I really wanted to talk to you about this because, my gosh, I mean, I think if Mackenzie had left, it would come down the same way that Victoria did. She didn't think she was really walking in anything that was dangerous.
Right.
Mackenzie didn't for sure. She thought that she was going into a family and in a situation that she understood and
Hmm.
knew what was going to happen. And I think Victoria did as well. And uh, in our case, we were able to get word of it in advance and do some things to keep her from
Yeah.
going. But we were just really fortunate that we just had some girls that came up and said something.
Yes.
And you found out the day, I guess it was the day she
The day
left,
she left. Yes.
because she just didn't hear from work, and then everybody at work knew about it, and then you found basically an envelope that just like yeah, I'm doing this. And
Yep.
but I think she just really thought that I'll just come back in a little while and
Yes.
it's no big deal.
Absolutely.
And then
Absolutely.
happy birthday, Dad.
Yeah.
See you in a couple of months.
Right.
And
Exactly. Yeah. And yeah, she just did not really realize the danger that she was putting herself in and us in. And she just, it shows you the naivety that she just thought leaving that letter was just going to make it all fine. I explained everything. I mean, I told you where I was going. I mean, what's the problem?
mhm,
It's like you don't
yeah,
realize that once the detectives saw that letter, that they said this looks just like all the other letters looked identical to it, to what this, sex trafficking looks like. They told us that that's what it was. So
yeah.
yeah, the letter just, I'm so grateful that she left the letter. We wouldn't have had a clue
You
if she
wouldn't have a
hadn't.
clue.
But
Yeah.
I'm so thankful for it. But it did make our fears worse, not better, you know,
Mhm,
reading it. So,
mhm.
but yeah, like I said, if I had have found out ahead of time, like you guys did, you and your wife Stephanie, I don't know what I would have done. It would have been so. I would have messed it up. I'm telling you, you guys have a lot. You're a lot older and wiser. You have more wisdom because I would have went in there and just said, "What are you doing?" I wouldn't have been able
That
to
was
keep my
definitely our
mouth
first
shut.
reaction, right? Um, but but Destiny, I said the same thing that if we'd come back and just gotten a letter, Steph and I talked about this after we talked with you and Brent. It's like I don't know what we'd have done. I mean, the fact that you could garner up that much, that you could gin up that much support from the police, from the government, and get to India as fast as you did, and get to her that fast was incredible.
It was just
And
it was a complete miracle from God. I mean, we didn't even think we were gonna go. We're like, "There's no way we're gonna go. There's no way we can
mhm.
go. We can't do that." And, from till the last minute, I didn't even think we were gonna go. I was actually trying to send my boys, which was crazy, but, I was thinking, "Well, they'll
Mhm.
listen to her," but thank God I didn't send them over there, but, it just, we had no clue that that's what we were about to do. We never been anywhere. So
No, I wouldn't have known where to start. But I thought it was, um, I guess we look at it and we can kind of coulda, shoulda,
yeah,
woulda
yeah,
on a lot of it. And
yeah,
in our case, we once we figured it out, we didn't. It, we did recognize that we had an advantage that that we knew something, and she'd been keeping this secret for a very long time, like Victoria was doing, and now we knew, and she didn't know that we knew,
yeah,
and that's a big advantage,
yeah,
that you can work with, and so at least we could look at that and had the wherewithal to say, well, okay, this isn't great, but this is okay. I mean, at least we maybe we get some things in place,
right,
because as you open the show, it was more, I mean, we could stop her. If you'd have found out, you probably could have stopped her. But how many
right,
times can you stop her if she
right,
really, really wants to go?
right,
And so convincing, stopping her is one thing, but removing the desire to leave
right,
is something else. When
right,
she has spent 18 months, in our case, 14 months in our case, 2 years in your case, that you've got days to convince her that this isn't good.
yeah,
And it was a very hard nut to crack, but at least we were dealing with it on one side.
right,
And when you with her already committing and finding her in India, you were having to work so many more complexities that you were dealing with that we didn't have
mhm,
to, that we didn't have to contend with. Um,
right.
it's infinitely harder.
You're right, and you deal with what's in here in her heart, so like you said, and that's really comforting to me, when you say, how many times could you stop her? Even if you could have stopped her, from going the first time, because every time I start to think, well, I should have or could have done this or that and have these regrets, it is so counterproductive and ineffective. And I just can't think that way. I have to think that it happened because it was supposed to happen. For what
Mhm.
reason? I don't know yet. We still haven't seen the ending, but I know that God's going to use it for part of his plan. And that's what I have to believe because, yeah, I thought, even if I did stop her, I couldn't take it out of here. And that's what you have to do is remove the desire. And that brings us to a good point about how you finally were able to get Mackenzie to not leave is that whenever the FBI agent told her, you're gonna say this and then he's gonna say that. And that's exactly what happened. When she said that, he said that, and that is what clicked, I guess, in her mind to break her into the reality that he is really
Yeah,
just trying to scam you.
it was it was a lot of many steps
Yeah.
to lead up to that, to where that would make a difference. Our first thought was exactly what you thought when you say you're going to send my boys over there, because they won't, she's not going to listen to me. And that was what we really came to realize too, that we didn't think that she would listen to us either. And we were looking, now her brothers were a lot younger than her. So we didn't have anybody that, we didn't have anybody obvious that she would
Mhm.
listen to. Um,
Right.
so we decided we would needed to get some expert involved that could, that would be some sort of authority figure that could convince her, because we felt like there needed to be an outside voice as well. So the first step was to, once I, through some miraculous steps, got an FBI agent to help us really unofficially. He really did it more as a dad, and got permission from his supervisor to work with us, some, but no crime had been committed. So there wasn't, I mean, normally these guys are involved after the crime is there. And so he
Right.
had to get permission to even talk to us.
Right.
So he had to be really careful about what he could do and what he couldn't do.
Right.
She was 18.
Right.
So he was able to thread that needle in a way, because he was number one, a dad,
Yeah.
and was really afraid that if she did go over there, bad things could happen.
Yeah.
So the first idea was to kind of scare her straight,
Yeah.
and that was sort of a surprise intervention that they had done before with some girls to kind of shock them into saying, "Hey, this is really bad. You need to back away."
Yeah.
And Mackenzie kind of backed away. I mean, I think she realized, okay, well, maybe going over there is not a great idea, but you know, but I don't think there's anything wrong with him. And so she said, well, if I'm not going to go over there, then I want you to bring him over here. And so that was a whole nother thing. And then we kind of had to shift from, okay, well, we stopped her desire to go, but now we need to kind of convince her that, this guy doesn't have your best interest at heart. This isn't
Right.
love. I mean, this is something
Right.
else.
Right.
And so it took quite a number of steps. The final step being, when Kevin had that final talk to her, and after several weeks of, being able to build a little bit at a time, he was finally able to say some words and predict what he was going to do. And
Hmm.
she also points to that and said, well, once I realized that people could predict what he could do, and they've seen it before and it was really playing as a script, well,
Yeah.
that was the first time that I realized, well, maybe this isn't what I thought it was going to be. And then we could, then she broke it off with him, but it took a long time. And
Yeah.
um, but in her case, she really, really had to be convinced that he was doing this for bad purposes and not for love, and that took a long time.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Well, she was very strong-willed, like you say, because even after the FBI agents met with you and told her, you need to cut off all communication with him immediately, right now. And then as soon as they leave, I think she went upstairs and went to talk to him. And she's very, very strong-willed. But she
Lord
really had to
mercy.
take those steps. It is a part
Yeah.
of progression, because I'm sure that Mackenzie was grieving this relationship for it to end and for it not to be what she thought it was. I'm sure that there was a grieving process that she went through of losing something that could have been, what could have been, or what she thought it was. So it's really like a grieving process of having to cut this relationship off. And I think, as Melanie said, you can't just like turn the lights on all at once when you've been in the dark. You have to let a little light shine a little at a time. And in our case, we're going on 7 years now. I mean, it's 6.5 years. And so my daughter has a lot of light, I guess, that needs
You
to be
know,
shined.
Destiny, I feel like I haven't asked you this before in reading the book, but you were able to bring her home. And so, I felt like you guys did convince her that this wasn't right. And that she got the feeling when she was there that this isn't really working out the way I thought that was going to work out.
Right.
And you guys were able to bring her home. And
Yeah.
so it wasn't, it looked to me like that it wasn't the the families in India that really turned out not to be the one the most damaging to you.
Right. Yeah, you're right. There was a lot of different factors at play, a lot of interference. It wasn't just the people in India that we were working against. We had other people who were working against us. And I think if it wasn't for those people, it would have been a totally different story.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it is the way it is. And we did bring her back, I guess, by forcefully. The Indian government did help us through a miracle to get her. She really was not wanting to come back, but there was this back and forth. If you read the story, it's just back and forth where she's wanting us, not wanting it. It's from love, hate, and it's because of that spirit there, that interference from, I believe, a demonic spirit. They do worship, gods, demons, is what I call them over there. And so there's definitely that interference from the demonic side. It was spiritual warfare, and then that crept into people close to us. So it just, once we landed here at the airport, it was taken further to where, we would have been home and healing, but more people got involved. But so yeah, but I want to turn the focus more to you, because this is more about you. But yeah, it was just, we had a lot more going on. for
Mhm.
sure
Yeah, you
to
did.
deal with.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, we kept our circle very tight, and, so we didn't
yeah,
because we
yeah,
could,
yeah,
and, and so we, were very, um, we didn't let anybody know besides Stephanie and I and the FBI agent for about a month. There was nobody that knew what was going on,
yeah.
and
Wow, it's a lot to hold on to yourself, a lot
yeah,
to bear.
but afterwards, once that initial was over, that initial scared me straight, didn't quite work, and we knew that we were going to do this for the long time. We did open up to our close friends and our family to say, "Hey, this is what we're dealing with," and we were very, very fortunate that we had a very supportive family that would not, that backed us.
Yes,
Um, even I don't know that anybody thought differently, that thought we should handle it any differently, but if they did, they didn't say anything, and
right,
so we didn't have anybody working against us. I mean, everybody was pushing in the same direction, and we
great.
just decided to wrap it in God's love,
Yeah,
and and let that be a guide for us. And I really had to work hard not to let anger, not to
yeah,
make decisions out of anger, and to always try to keep the path open between me and Stephanie and her, and
yeah,
not do anything on our side that she could ever, that anybody could ever point to and say, that's reasons you shouldn't trust them. And so
right,
we went to great lengths, and sometimes it's very, very difficult to do, of trying to address it without, I don't know, reacting out of anger. And there were lots of times
yeah,
that we could have done that, or said something or do something that was reactionary, that could have been damaging. So it was only through God's grace that I was able to, Steph and I were able to focus on, I call it loving her where she's at. And and I
yes,
and what that means is, I didn't I didn't like where she was, and she wasn't where
right,
she was supposed to be. And
right,
and I didn't want her there. But I needed to learn how to love her anyway, where she was, regardless of that.
right.
What I realized was that I had, early on in this crisis, she converted from Christianity to Islam, and at first
Yes,
it was
I
kind
wanted to
of
bring that
subtle,
up.
and then it was just a big, in your face. We couldn't, we for the life of us, we couldn't understand why or how.
Right,
I mean, it turned out
right,
this guy was behind it, that was
right.
behind it, but it was very, very alarming.
Yeah,
And for us being in a Christian family, and a conservative Christian family, it was very, it reflected
disturbing.
badly. What it really came down to, it really reflected bad on me as a father, and reflected bad on me as a parent, and I was more mad than
Mhm.
anything else.
Yeah,
It took me a long time to realize that loving her where she's at means I need to love her unconditionally.
right,
And when I was able to decide, I'm just, I don't like that she did that, but I'm not going to make that a condition of me having a relationship with her.
right,
That may go against the grain of what other people think that was the right thing to do, but I think that's what we were called to do. And I decided that I'm not going to, say, well, I'm going to love you like you were when you get your way back where you were. I'm just going to love you where you are, even though it's not where you should be. And it made all the difference. And I've counseled through the years a lot of fathers who deal with kids who are dealing with drugs, or sexual promiscuity, or whatever it is.
mhm,
You just name it. It doesn't matter.
mhm,
When they're in rebellion, I've counseled dads to say, look, you have every right to be mad at her, and you have every right um, to want to do something, to protect your family.
Mhm.
But do you want to? You have to decide is do you want to win the battle, or do you win the war?
Yeah.
And and so
Pick our battles.
yeah, and so you can kick her out of the house, and you can lay down the line that, hey, what you're doing is not in line with our values of our house, and so therefore you can't be here, and you're not going to be a part of our family anymore until you straighten that out. But I just didn't feel like that's what I was called to do. And when I could decide and said, well, I can love her, and I'm it, and 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 I can just love her where she is, then it allowed me to be able to get past some really, really hard times when I wanted to you know just cut it off. It's like, forget it. um so hope that makes sense. I
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, it's parenting is not something that we're taught how to do. So we're learning as we go, and I'm sure all of us could have made better choices. I wish that there was things I could have done better, or what I could have done to make my daughter come and talk to me and tell me about her plans. Um, and obviously, I mean, as close as you and your daughter were and talked about things all the time, it's just,
Mhm.
you just can't predict what's going to happen sometimes. And we
Mhm.
have to remember there's this other world out there that's fighting for their affections and pulling them close also. So, but yeah, as parents, we shouldn't blame ourselves. And I did want to bring up that point about, that your daughter, I mean, you were dealing with this whole other situation as well. You were dealing with the fact that she was losing her faith. I mean, she was going for this person, but also his religion that he was basically, um, it wasn't just that he was like, witnessing to her. That is not what this was. I mean, you can witness to people and share your faith online. He was going behind your back. You didn't know about it. He was asking her to come over there and marry him. This
Mhm.
wasn't, just witnessing to someone.
Mhm.
This was
Right,
totally different.
right. You know, boy, if there was anything that I would have never thought would have ever happened, and if there are things I've second guessed myself on, that was the one that I second guessed myself on the most. Um, Mackenzie asked one time, she was asked and said she had some interest in Islam, and asked me if she could buy one. And man, I mean, senior in high school, 18, and and it really was hard. But I didn't want her to. I mean, I didn't think she had any business doing that. But when you're 18 and you just go to Barnes and Noble and buy it, then it seemed like, as I thought through it, it's like, well, I don't see how I could stop her from buying it if she wanted to. And the fact that she asked me is probably a good thing. So maybe this is an opportunity that she can go explore this, and then I can, as long as I put some parameters around it, and we do it together, and we have the Bible and Christian faith that's going against it, that we can compare and discuss, and that I could convince her of the truths of Jesus Christ. That's what I thought. Um, and and frankly, I didn't think they would last 2 weeks. I mean, I didn't think there was any way that she would stay with any sort of a study like that for very long. Um, so I think I probably could have handled that better. I think I should have gone into that a little more buttoned up on. I think I overestimated my abilities to be able to explain and defend the Christian faith against something like Islam that I knew nothing about, and I think I just it just never even occurred to me that you could compare those two and then walk away with anything other than what you grew up with. It never crossed my mind that would be something that would happen. And so, but
I know.
it did. It
That
was baffling to me. And
Yep.
but I think as parents, I think the lesson I took away from it though is that I think I was right in that she probably would have bought a Quran anyway. And I think that I was right in saying, let's do this together and let's compare this. But I think I would have been far better off um, coming in something with more structure, and then had somebody that's kind of work with me on how to do that
Yeah,
instead of me just kind of winging it myself. Because it's
yeah,
um, there were just times I had answers to almost everything, but I wasn't, it wasn't compelling enough. And I wish I had poured more into her at a younger age of her understanding the fundamentals of her faith, and not relying only on the church to do that. And
right.
we would, you know, we would not, our family, I didn't raise our family where we were doing Bible studies at home. I mean, we would, we prayed, and we had spiritual discussions all the time, and we acted and tried to act within what we felt like were faith-based decisions, and making sure the kids understood that.
Mhm.
That's the way I was raised.
Yep.
But, but in today's world, when I was raised, if you had a Jehovah Witness coming down the street, everybody knew long before he got there that was, that was going on.
What was
And
gonna happen? Yeah.
in my
They're
school,
good at sharing their faith.
yeah, I mean, if you just, people knew the difference if you went to, a Methodist church or a Baptist church. I mean, but it was just shades of Christianity, is all I ever dealt with. Our kids,
Yeah.
especially in big cities like Mobile or in Dallas Fort Worth, where we are, it's or anywhere today with social media, they're exposed to a lot more. And so I think that we have to do a better job as parents of really being more sophisticated with ourselves about our
Mhm.
Christian faith, and be able to start building not just on, hey, just trust me because this is just the way it is,
Right.
but really diving in and teaching the truths of Jesus' love and his nature, and
Yeah.
taking what we would consider to be adult type of lessons that we teach about God's grace and his mercy and his love and forgiveness, and pour that into them at a more sophisticated level at a younger age, so that when
Yeah.
she got there, it wasn't she wasn't looking at Christian faith as something that my parents had, but
Right.
she really was much more deeply grounded in why she followed Christ. Why?
Right.
Not the fact that she did it,
Right.
but really be able to explain, here's why I lean on it. Here's my proofs. Here's why I'm certain this is true.
Right.
These are the evidences that I'm looking at, because that's what she needed when you go against a guy who's intent on changing her mind.
Oh, yes, absolutely, and so, that way it's her faith that she owns it. It's not her parents' faith, because we
Mhm.
all have to have our own. We can't borrow someone, not ultimately, we can't borrow
Mhm.
someone else's. We might can borrow some of their faith for a little while, but,
Yeah.
we ultimately, we have to learn to walk on our own. So, yeah, I think that's a really good point, and like you said, these people, strangers, have access to our children from anywhere in the world at almost pretty much any time, and that is what's so scary. That can try to just come into our homes, and just completely change the way that our children think and take them from us, because they no longer have to even walk out the door. They can just come right into our homes, and we need to be very vigilant on teaching them and educating them on good internet usage, and
Mhm.
good etiquette, of how to conduct yourself online with people, and what the warning signs are. And that's one of the
Mhm.
warning signs, what you're describing right now, her asking for the Quran. It's like, where did that come from? This is a change in character or behavior.
Yeah.
That is a warning sign. You know,
Mhm.
where is this coming from? Why, you know, why this? Why now? You know, and so that's what I hope to educate people on, or some of the what's one of the warning signs. Um, well, I know we're getting close to the end of our hour, and gosh, I wish I had all day because there's just so much. I could read this whole book through. I've underlined so many things that I could just talk about with you, like a commentary on it.
Mhm.
But I did want to. There's a couple more things that I wanted to talk about. I think it's important that we share how your daughter found this guy. It was
Yeah.
Omegle. Omegle.
Yeah. Yeah. It was an online service called Omegle. It's still around. At the time, it was very popular, but uh, we spoke at a school just 6 months ago, a small school in North Louisiana, and we asked if anybody had heard of Omegle, and 80% of the class raised their hand. Um, it was just like a chat roulette. There's many others that do the same thing, where you can go and just and um, kind of for entertainment, talk to people online. So I think, in her case, she was just out there with a friend. They were just wasting time, and they were just doing something that kids do for entertainment. And this guy was catfishing on the site, and got her attention, and started talking to him. So he, in her case, I mean, he didn't reach out to her. He was just sitting out here with a camera, and he's a really, really handsome guy, and got an 18-year-old girl's attention, and then
This was
and
like speed
that's how.
dating, kind of like speed dating, where you just
No,
click next,
no,
and it,
actually, just it was just set up where, that particular site is just set up where you're just talking to somebody, and if you don't like them, you just swipe, and go through, and there's somebody else with a camera, and they're just waiting, and
safe,
like,
right? It's so
"Yeah,
safe.
hey," and then you start talking. It's like, "Oh, I
It's
don't like
right.
them," you just swipe it over, and then if you got somebody that you want to talk to, then you would talk to them and let it go.
And they
Uh,
don't know your name or where you live or anything,
in
right?
fact, it's set up where all you could do, at least back when McKinsey had it, all you could do was just type back and forth, just send messages
Can't
back
even
and forth.
talk, yeah.
Couldn't even talk.
Just yeah.
So it was, but they, but when they exchanged information into Facebook, and then they kind of get into other, a little
Yeah.
deeper in other people's lives, then it
Yeah.
kind of built a channel of communication there, that was, that allowed it to go further.
Yes.
So, in his case, that's how they met. It was, he was an extremely good looking guy, and the FBI um, said the name they use for guys like that are Romeos. And so when, they're just kind of hanging out until they get a bite, and then,
Yeah.
then they kind of start talking to young girls,
Yeah.
and go from there.
Well, I've heard that now, of someone even fall in love with someone who wasn't even real. It was AI. So now you
Oh,
don't even know if it's a real person. So now we've got
yeah.
that thrown into the mix. So people really need to
Yeah, as
be
if it
careful.
wasn't complicated enough, right?
Right. Right. Now you don't even know if they're a real person.
Right.
And, you can be sending money to some, mob somewhere, of people. But I want to bring up this picture on the screen and this made me cry when I was looking at it yesterday. And I hope I don't cry now, but
Mm.
um, so what made me cry about this picture is look at your daughter's face. She is happy. She is smiling. She is owning it. She is saying, "This is my story and I'm going to tell it." She's not afraid. And I just pray one day that my daughter will be able to do exactly that, what Mackenzie is doing. And that is what our hope and prayer is. But I'm just so proud of your daughter right there. She is
Yeah.
just totally owning it.
It
I
it did
love it.
take, it took a lot of courage. It took a lot of courage for you to write your story. And but when I wrote mine, and I reached out to Melanie too. I was just so awestruck and so humbled that we were able to save her. I was just couldn't believe that it worked. And so when
Yeah.
I was just thinking about how I just felt like that I had been so richly blessed, and I just could not. I just wanted my family to know that this is how it happened. My boys and Mackenzie, because
Right.
Mackenzie, even though she's a part of it, didn't really understand what happened. I mean, she didn't
Right.
know. She just knew
Right.
that suddenly we just like showed up, and we were in the middle of her corn place, and it was like, how did you even know? And how did you find out? And we're just all this is going. And she was young, and my boys
Yeah.
were young, and I wanted them to be able to go back years from now and not stories change over time, and
Right.
they dilute, and things get moved around a little bit, and I didn't want my boys to have a son or daughter. And it's like, whatever happened with crazy Aunt Mac? I mean, what was
Right.
all that?
Right.
And they're trying to relay this story as they saw it when they were 10,
Oh,
and miss
right.
the the deepness that God's faithfulness for us and mercy he
Yeah.
had on us. And I wanted to
Yeah.
write capture that. Melanie's
Yeah.
one who suggests I write with Mackenzie. It
Yeah.
never crossed my mind that I would do that. And I told her, I said, there's not a chance that she's going to want to do this with me. But she really encouraged me and said it'll help you if she will do it. It will help you guys kind of unpack all this, and I think it'll make you closer. And she was
Mm.
100% right. And
Mm.
Mackenzie wasn't totally engaged with the project. But I said, listen, all we're going to do is write it for ourselves. We'll print 10 copies. But I just want us to have some that you can have it someday, and I just want it written down. I said, and maybe there's a time that you can help a girl. Maybe there's
Mhm.
a way that you can kind of pay this forward. And so that's how we started on the journey. So that picture that she shown was, the as she got deeper into it and she began speaking and began realizing that she was reaching girls and she was making a difference, and it was something that she could own
Yeah.
and not something she necessarily need to hide from. I left the decision of publishing it completely up to her. It said, if you want
Oh,
to, we'll do it.
wow.
If you don't, we won't. It's completely up to you. So it was totally her decision to move forward with it. Um, and but it allowed her to move past a really dark time in her life, and help people, and it really helped us understand the story better
Yeah.
ourselves, for us to see how God worked and blessed us, and then try to help some people in the middle. So that picture really kind of establishes the end of a very difficult journey for her.
Yes.
It was immensely proud of her for having the courage for a kid to put up her worst day and her worst decisions,
Yes.
and put it
Yes.
out for the world to see.
I'm
But
so proud of her. So
yeah,
courageous to be able to do that, and for your
mhm.
wisdom, so wise to document it, just to document exactly how it played out for future generations, for your grandchildren, and if she didn't ever come back to you with her heart, and that's another thing I wanted to ask you. Was there ever a time where there was any distance or anger or estrangement after, even after she knew that he wasn't who he said he was? Did
Mm,
she ever?
that's a really good question. I don't think I've ever been asked that. I would say yes, there was for sure. Um, when Mackenzie came out of that relationship, she jumped into another one pretty fast. But it was like it's like you get a Coke bottle, and you fizz it up, and you pop the top off, and then and then you have all this energy and things that she'd been suppressing for a long time, just starts wanting to exert her independence to get her life back. And she did that in some I don't know. She bought a motorcycle and a crotch rocket, and just just started just riding, you know motorcycles 150 miles an hour, and riding
She's
around
an
with these guys
adventurer.
on street bikes. And I mean, it was just crazy. And so there was a lot of wildness that went on there for a while, afterwards. And it was, really pretty, we were worried about, she wasn't, the Islam thing dropped like a hot potato as soon as the relationship was over. I don't
Well,
think that was ever anything that was seriously in her
not something you
heart.
really wanted.
I
Yeah.
think I think as it turned out in hindsight, it was really more just kind of whatever this guy wanted, she was willing to
Right.
do.
Right.
So immediately after that happened, I mean, we had a lot of healing to do, and we got her in some counseling, but she was really just trying to exert herself and just regain her independence again. But you have to do that within the rules of the house. So I had a good friend of mine that I was talking to him about this, and I said, I don't know what to do. And it said, how am I going to, how am I going to deal with this? And he said, I'm going to tell you that you should tell her that there's a cone of safety. And so so within this cone, there's these parameters. That's the parameters of our house. These are just the rules of how we're going to live. There's some curfews. There's not much, but as long as you're in these lines, I got everything for you. We'll send you to school, trade school, whatever you want. We're here for you. But you're way over there. And so I'm trying to drag you into this cone, and I'm trying to push you in this cone, and you don't want to go. So, and if you're not in the cone, then you're going to have to get off the train. And that's what I ended up telling her. And so it was within 6 months of her coming out of this, I had that talk with her and said, so the train's stopping today and you're getting off. And she said, what does that mean? It says, you got to leave the house. She's like,
Wow.
leave the house. I said, well, Mackenzie, I can't, we can't just have you're living by one set of rules, and then we're trying to raise two boys with a different set of rules. And we love you, and we're not doing this out of anger. It's but if that's the way you want to go, then you need to find your own way. I mean, and if you put yourself in, you want to move forward, as long as you're moving forward, I'm happy for you. But right now you're really not interested in moving forward. So whenever you get to the point of moving forward, I got everything for you. But until then, you're going to have to kind of deal with this on your own. And there's no anger here at all. You're welcome here. Want you here anytime that you want. But if that's the way you want to live day to day, then you're going to have to do that somewhere else. So
absolutely. That's a hard thing. That's a hard thing to do.
It was very, very difficult. And we had counseling for her, and she found some friends, but it turned out to be it turned out to be a really important step for her to, realize that I got, that she needed to think differently. And I think that, so to answer your question, there was some distance there, but we were able to do that without anybody ever getting mad, or angry. And in time, I think it turned into a strength for her, but she had to go get her independence. And so that was a very trying time for us to get to that decision. And eventually she wanted to go back to school, and she did, and excelled, and has been doing great things since. But it was a rough patch, and a lot of very wise counseling and help that she got along the way to get her there.
Well, I'm so glad that she is doing well now, and she's growing up, and she's married, I've heard. So yeah.
She's married and was actually became a police officer here in Dallas-Fort Worth for 4 years, and was on patrol, and worked with many runaways, many girls. She doesn't speak anymore with the book. She's moved on from that. But I think her experiences helped her really reach rebellious kids in a way that no one else could. I mean, she was young, and a young lady that could relate to these girls who were dealing with traumas and bad decisions, and she really could help them, and helped a lot of them. And but she left the police force, and now she is working to become a commercial airline pilot, and actually just started a flight school. So she's
doing my dream.
Yeah, so
That was one of my dreams.
yeah, and
That's so
very
awesome.
happily
So
married,
awesome.
to a really wonderful, wonderful young man, for the last 4 years, and,
That's awesome.
just immensely proud of her and extremely close with her, and love her very much, so
That is awesome. What
it's a good ending for us.
Yes, a happy ending. That's what I was gonna say, even though it takes time to get there.
Mhm.
But all of our trials and tribulations, they are part of what makes us who we are and grows our character. It tests us so that we'll be ready for heaven, you know. And I believe that that's what God is doing here and helping us to be able to bring other people into the fold and into the kingdom. And that's what I'm hoping. I don't think anything happens by accident, and I don't think that you and I came together for this by accident. I'm really encouraged and my heart is warm today talking to you. And I feel like, you know, there's going to be more in store. And I look forward to all the things that God has planned. And it was so nice having you on the show today. Do you have any other closing comments before I um, sign off?
I so appreciate you reaching out, and your story is very, very compelling, and they really are mirror images of each other. That you
Yeah,
can see the similarities of
yeah,
how people can see this trap could come from multiple different ways, and see how it can go. I mean, there's so much that's out of control, but I think the commonality is we just land our faith in Christ. We lean on our spouses and on each
yeah.
other, and we love our kids unconditionally. And I think that in the end, love's going to bring her home.
Amen. I know, and you and your wife Stephanie, you were just such a solid team, you know, that she couldn't knock down. And I think that is so good. And I'm so glad that my husband and I have been able to be that because I could see how the enemy could easily just, you know, tear that apart. And once that's torn apart, then it's just, you know, then you hardly have anything left. And I'm just so glad that we've been able to stay a team as well and
Yeah,
not let this
it's
tear our
hard.
marriage apart. Yeah, it
That's
will
tough.
tear your marriage apart whenever you're grieving in different ways. It's
Yeah.
just something I never even thought was possible, but it
Mhm.
is. It's a real thing.
It is.
Yeah, so I would love to have you sometime in the future come back on the show because there's so much more I would want to talk
I'd
about.
love to. Yeah.
Great. And I'm so thankful for all the things you're doing, helping these kids. And, you know, we want to start a ministry too. And I think it's going to come from this where we can just, you know, help in some way, you know, help the world, you know, ease the pain and suffering in the world. So, and I'm glad that you're doing that. Well, thank you so much, John, for coming on the show. And I look forward to seeing you again.
All right. We'll look forward to it, Desi. Thank you so much. I enjoyed it.
Well, that concludes our show today. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again in the next video.